After giving up our identities to become an ordinary couple, both Hui Yan and I regretted our decision. Thus, in our second life, we tacitly avoided all the opportunities that could have led us to meet again. When we met again, he was already a victorious general, returning triumphantly to the capital in all his glory. By chance, we encountered a wedding procession, and he asked, "Who is getting married today?" Others replied, "The Pei family." "Is it Pei heir, the second daughter? Why isn't Pei Wan, the eldest sister, here to send her off?" Pei Wan is the bride. When I found out that Hui Yan hadn't attended the flower viewing banquet at the Prime Minister's mansion, I realized he had also been reborn. In our previous life, as the daughter of a low-ranking official, I was assigned to the most remote corner. When I was being mocked and ridiculed, he happened to come by and rescued me. That was the beginning of our fated love. As for why it was called fated love, it was mostly because we fell in love afterward but were opposed by our families. One night, he climbed through the window, held my hand, and said, "Alwan, I won't be a general anymore, and you won't be a lady of the manor. Let's escape together and find a utopia where we can be together forever." I was so moved that I hurriedly packed my belongings and fled Jinling with him, pretending to be dead. At that time, we were both too young to know that leaving behind a life of luxury and comfort would mean endless hardships for us. The land we had to cultivate was too hard, and the young gentleman, whose hands had never touched water, was covered in blisters. The coarse hemp clothing was too rough, and the young lady who had never done manual labor in her life developed red rashes. At first, we could numb ourselves with love, hugging each other for warmth. He felt guilty. "Aw, Wan, it's all my fault. I couldn't give you a good life." The young master of the Huo family had always been proud. He believed that even without his family, he could still achieve great things. So when he decided to elope, he brought nothing but the clothes on his back. I did bring some valuables, but after buying the house, they were gone. Hearing this, I shook my head and smiled. My husband can grow grain, and I can embroider for money. We have hands and feet as long as we can be together. Alwan doesn't feel wronged. Though I said this, as time went on, the news arrived that the second young master of the Huo family had returned victorious and been granted the title of General of Anwu. Hui Yan, who was applying manure to the crops, fell silent. That night, he sat by the window all night after I had fallen asleep. He must have been thinking that originally, the Huo family had intended to send him into battle. His attitude toward me grew much colder. He began to lose focus frequently. He often inquired about the second young master of the Huo family. It was said that he had become famous in battle, and the emperor was very pleased. Not only did he have a promising career, but he might even be married to a princess. He was at the height of his glory. He listened intently. He even forgot that he had promised me last night that he would come back early today to take me to see a doctor. We were very poor after running away, and I didn't want to spend all the money we had saved up on a doctor's visit. That's why I said, "I'm just not feeling very well. It's nothing serious." But Hui Yan was surprisingly adamant. "It's just a visit to the doctor. I told you when we left the general's mansion that I, Hui Yan, would still be able to support you." It was as if he wanted to prove something. Or perhaps the story of the second young master Huo had spread, about how he sold medicine for the princess and was full of heroic spirit. I opened my mouth, looked at this familiar yet slightly unfamiliar face, and finally nodded. "I'll wait for my husband to return." The snow fell heavily in the winter. The thin winter clothes were blown by the wind, making me feel the cold to the bone. Hui Yan didn't come back. I braved the snow, enduring the dizziness and weakness in my body, to find him at the tavern. He was drunk out of his mind. The tavern owner saw me, Mrs. Pei, you've finally come. The bill can't be waived, no credit. I glanced at the ledger and was shocked. How could it be so expensive? If it had been before, it would have been no more than the price of a hairpin. But now, we had already left our families. And this was all the money we had saved up together over the years. Expensive? The tavern owner snorted. If it's expensive, why did you come to drink? And you dare to call yourself the older brother of the second young master of the Huo family? Have you lost your mind? You're so poor. What are you even worth? I was speechless. Hui Yan suddenly stood up and slammed the owner against the pillar. You look down on me? Even you look down on me? I'm the older brother of Ruolin. Who gave you the right to speak to her like that? She's my woman. Apologize. You're causing trouble. The tavern owner stammered in fear. I whispered. Hui Yan, let it go. Hui Yan said nothing. He punched the tavern owner in the face. Then the second punch. The third punch. Hui Yan! I couldn't take it anymore. At that moment, the tavern owner couldn't take it anymore. I'm sorry. Hui Yan stopped punching. I'm sorry. Okay? I'm sorry. Let me go. Let me go. I won't dare again. He insisted. I'm the older brother of Ruolin. The tavern owner nodded frantically. You're the older brother of Ruolin. You are. He let go of the man, who fell to the ground and crawled away in fear. But his figure swayed. I stepped forward to help him up. Hui Yan, let's go home. The next moment, he suddenly pushed me away. The tables and chairs behind him collided with my soft flesh, causing a sharp pain and making my vision go black. All I could hear was Hui Yan's voice, reeking of alcohol. Why? The one who should have become famous in one battle is me. The one who should have had a smooth path to officialdom is also me. Even. He paused, then said, I'm the one who should marry the princess. I stood completely still, the pain in my body numb. But he continued, I regret it. The next day, when he woke up, he saw me busy as usual. He shook his head and said, Alwan? I heard his voice and paused, then turned around and smiled as usual. You're awake. Dinner is almost ready. Wait a moment. There's also some hangover soup on the table. Mentioning alcohol, Hui Yan's expression froze. And he suddenly asked me anxiously, Did I say anything last night while I was drunk? I looked at him without changing my expression. You were drunk and only knew how to sleep. What else could you have said? He sighed in relief, stepped forward, took my hand, and held me in his arms, saying the first words of affection he had spoken in 3 months. Ah, Wan, having you as my wife is truly wonderful. I just looked at the pile of earth in the courtyard and suddenly thought of my father. He was just a minor official in the city of Jinling, but he was famous for his love for his wife. Everyone said that Mr. Pei was devoted to his wife and had no concubines in his mansion. But only I knew that he had a beautiful mistress outside. And every time he returned from seeing her and saw my mother's concerned face, he felt a pang of guilt. So for a while after that, he treated my mother especially well. And I, hearing his words, forced a smile and said, I feel the same. That wasn't true. Hui Yan only thought that he was the one who regretted it. But this morning, I heard that my younger sister was getting married. And among the red wedding decorations, there were 2 of Lady Pei's most precious jade headpieces. Those were masterpieces crafted by skilled artisans. They were priceless. Even a small piece of the jade could sustain both me and Hui Yan for a long time. And one of them was meant for me. At that moment, I regretted it too. Fortunately, it wasn't too late, because when I opened my eyes, I realized that both Hui Yan and I had been reborn. We had been reborn before the flower viewing banquet where we first met. This time, he didn't come. When my younger sister asked if I wanted to sneak a peek at the men's section, I didn't go. Throughout the banquet, I was unusually quiet, careful and cautious in everything I did. Even when the noble ladies mocked and ridiculed me, I didn't utter a word in response. My younger sister Pei Shu was surprised. "Sister, why have you changed your temper today?" You see, though I wasn't exactly a hot-tempered person in the past, if I was bullied by a group of people, I wouldn't just swallow my anger. I just smiled. It's just a few words. Acting on impulse will only bring endless suffering. It was just like in my previous life, when I followed Hui Yan away from home for a moment of love and suffered endlessly. Now I'm just the daughter of a low-ranking official. These noble women may look down on me and say a few words, but if a real conflict arises, they could point a finger at me, and I'd be doomed to a life of suffering. Moreover, I am no longer the timid Pei One of the inner chambers. Having tasted suffering and fallen from grace, I have come to understand. A few words of argument mean nothing. I want a lot of money. And even more power. Is that so? My younger sister puffed out her cheeks. At 14, she knew nothing, her eyes brimming with curiosity. "Sister, isn't that the legendary Huadashi?" Not far away, on the archery field, Hui Yan was sweeping through the competition with unstoppable momentum. Countless noble women were captivated by him. My younger sister was one of them, but her voice was too loud, and her status was too low. The next moment, she was knocked to the ground by Du Qianer, the daughter of a minister, who sneered, You dare to compete with me? Do you think you're worthy of Hui Young Master?" "Exactly. Your father is just a lowly official. There are countless like him in Jinling. What are you doing here making a scene? You're truly unworthy of attention. One should know their place. Look at Miss Pei, she knows her place." The noble women around her mocked her harshly. I didn't. My younger sister was at a loss, tears welling up in her eyes as she looked around in confusion. "I didn't mean to compete with you." Little did she know that Du Qianer's gaze turned cold, and she raised her hand high. You dare to call yourself my lady?" Her palm struck down with considerable force. If it had landed, it might have left a mark on the younger sister's face. An unmarried woman with a blemish on her face would face immense difficulties in finding a suitable marriage in the future. But Du Qianer was accustomed to being arrogant. Or perhaps, what she truly wanted was to leave a mark on her younger sister's face. Unfortunately, she did not get her wish. A hand firmly grasped her wrist. The expected pain did not come, and the younger sister opened her eyes, tears falling down her cheeks. "Sister, Miss Du." My younger sister was impolite. "But this is the flower viewing banquet hosted by the wife of the Prime Minister. No matter how you look at it, you have no right to discipline a guest." My voice remained steady. Du Qianer narrowed her eyes. "Are you threatening me? Who do you think you are? Your father is just a low-ranking official, and your mother is nothing more than a merchant's daughter. Even if they both came to plead for you today, they wouldn't be worthy of standing before the Du family." The commotion drew the attention of others nearby. The male guests heard the commotion. "What's going on? It looks like another woman is causing trouble for Mr. Hua. Which of these young ladies doesn't have her eyes on Mr. Hua? But if I'm not mistaken, that should be the daughter of Minister Du. That young lady has a terrible temper. Getting involved with her won't end well. I know the one beside her. She's from a low-ranking family. She must be from the Pei family." At the mention of Pei, Hui Yan's expression stiffened. He instinctively looked over. There, he saw a familiar, straight silhouette. Around him, others spoke loudly. "Huadashi, she's suffering for you. Why won't you go and mediate? Don't let the young lady suffer for no reason." I heard that too. The air grew still for a moment. Then came Hui Yan's voice, devoid of emotion. A man going to the women's section is against etiquette. But in the previous life, it was he who had come personally, standing in front of me to defend me. At that moment, I finally knew for certain. Hui Yan had also been reborn. And in this life, he was determined to sever our karmic ties and live a different path. I should be sad. After all, we were married for a day in the previous life. But I just sighed in relief. Thankfully, he regretted it too. From now on, we'll go our separate ways and owe each other nothing. I gathered my thoughts, raised my gaze, and looked at Du Qianer. If that's how Miss Du feels, then Pei Wan has nothing to say. But my younger sister, Miss Du, must not touch her. Du Qianer had never been humiliated like this before, especially not in front of the young master of the Huo family she admired. Her face turned fierce, and she raised her other hand. I'll see if you dare to talk back to me. The slap came so fast it was hard to react. But for someone skilled in martial arts, it was like slow motion. Hui Yan instinctively wanted to step forward. But the memory of our escape in a previous life flashed through his mind, and he looked at my back. Suddenly, he clenched his teeth. He stopped. I didn't back down. I stared intently at the slap as it fell. At that moment, Miss Du, a voice rang out, and Du Qianer stopped in her tracks. The speaker stepped out of the crowd, smiling warmly, her tone unusually friendly. Is there something interesting going on? Why are you all gathered here? It was the hostess of the flower viewing banquet, the chancellor's wife. With the hostess present, if Du Qianer were to act, it would be a major scandal. She could look down on the Pei family, but she couldn't afford to offend the chancellor's mansion. After all, the Du family's current prosperity was entirely due to the chancellor's mansion's support and promotion, and Du Shangshu was once the chancellor's disciple. But before she could think of a response, I had already smiled and replied, "Indeed, it's an amusing incident. Miss Du and I hit it off at first sight. We were just playfully teasing each other." The dispute between the noble women was brushed off as a playful quarrel, and Du Qianer couldn't refute it, so she could only secretly shake off my hand. I remained unfazed and bowed to the chancellor's wife. Pei Wan greets the lady. The latter saw everything and merely gave me a meaningful glance. So that's how it is. You must be the child of Mr. Pei, right? You're a good child. The flower viewing banquet passed without incident. My younger sister was still in a daze when she got into the carriage. On the way back, I happened to see Du Qianer shyly rubbing her handkerchief against Hui Yan. The next second, she stuffed the handkerchief into his hand and ran away without looking back. Hui Yan didn't dodge, but he didn't drop it either. He stood there holding the handkerchief. How could the eldest son of the Huo family take a liking to someone like that? My younger sister's rose-colored glasses shattered. She hadn't forgotten that Du Qianer had tried to hit her earlier. I just watched quietly, speaking in a flat tone. Whether he likes her or not is none of our business. We should mind our own affairs. Ah, Zhu. My younger sister had always listened to me, and upon hearing this, she nodded vigorously. I'll listen to you. Older sister. The spring breeze lifted the curtain. Hui Yan turned around. He happened to see me. It was strange. He looked as though he had done something wrong, quickly hiding the hand holding the handkerchief behind his back, as if he wanted to explain something. Wan. I'm not. What was there to explain? We were already strangers to each other. I didn't listen and ordered the coachman. Return to the mansion. The curtain fell. Hui Yan was left behind, staring blankly and in shock at the receding carriage. 3 months passed in the blink of an eye, and Hui Yan was about to go to war. In my previous life, he and I were deeply in love. To be together, We both abandoned our status and became an ordinary couple. Thus, the one chosen for battle became the second young master of the Huo family. He regretted it. It was no wonder, then, that in this life he volunteered, with the second young master of the Huo family as his deputy. They departed in a grand procession, with many noble women who admired him secretly bidding him farewell at the Jinling Inn. Some said that the eldest young master of the Huo family kept looking back, wondering whom he was searching for or waiting for. Perhaps among them was the one he had long admired? My younger sister told me this as an amusing story. After the flower banquet, my elder sister hasn't left the house once, spending all her time embroidering and reading. I hope she doesn't get too cooped up. My mother sighed. I wonder whose daughter is so fortunate. She never imagined that the girl could be one of her own daughters. On the contrary, given the vast difference in family backgrounds, if it were true, it would not be a blessing but a curse. After all, the Huo family would never allow their son to marry the daughter of a low-ranking official as his main wife. I remained silent. Just then, a maid reported, "The chancellor's wife has arrived." A high-ranking official's wife coming here must be for matchmaking. This doesn't seem genuine. But what if the man being proposed is a sickly widower? That young man is my husband's favorite disciple. He's just not in good health. He married once, but his wife passed away shortly after they entered the door. Now, his family doesn't want him to live alone. So I thought of Miss Pei. The chancellor's wife looked at me. At the flower viewing banquet the other day, I noticed that Miss Pei seemed particularly fond of him. But that sickly man wasn't just widowed shortly after his first wife entered the household, he hadn't even had the wedding ceremony yet. Now, the entire city of Jinling is abuzz with rumors that he's not only sickly but also a wife killer. They say they're arranging another marriage, but it's just a matter of time before he dies. They're looking for someone to marry him off to for good luck, aren't they? My mother understood the underlying meaning, but she dared not speak out due to the other party's low status. She could only say, "Thank you for your kindness, madam. My daughter is still young, and I cherish her dearly. I would like to keep her for another year or two." What's there to keep? The chancellor's wife has spoken. It's a kind gesture, and it's a blessing for my daughter. My father immediately objected. Hearing that the chancellor's wife had come personally, his eyes lit up. He had reached this position in his official career and had little chance of promotion. But if he could climb the ladder by attaching himself to the chancellor's family, anything was possible. My mother understood her husband well. Hearing this, her face turned pale, and she tried to stop him. "Sir." The chancellor's wife merely smiled without speaking, took a sip of tea, and said lightly, "The two of you, why not ask Miss Pei herself if she is willing?" Upon hearing this, everyone turned to look at me. I only asked, "Does the other family have any assets?" "They are extremely wealthy. Enough for Miss Pei to live comfortably for 10 lifetimes. "Do they have influence?" "In Jinling City, every family owes them a debt of gratitude." She was waiting for me to ask about his appearance and character. But I had already asked everything. I said, "Then I'm willing to marry him." This time, even the chancellor's wife was taken aback. She thought I would at least hesitate. After all, it was a matter of lifelong importance. And the other party was a sickly, wife-killing man. But I didn't care. In my previous life, I had seen how my mother and father had lived a life of pretense, and I hadn't been happy. So I decided to live a different life. I faked my death with Hui Yan and fled far away to live as an ordinary couple. But I wasn't happy either. Even so, I wouldn't choose that life again. What's the point of love and affection? It's all illusory and can't be eaten. What can feed me is silver and power. Even if he were dead, I would marry him. My final question, when is the wedding? The chancellor's wife was delighted that it was decided so quickly and hurriedly replied, The 8th day of the 8th month, a auspicious day. That day was indeed a good day. Not only was it the wedding date, it was also the day Hui Yan returned victorious. He had indeed achieved a great victory, was named the ever-victorious general, and returned to the capital in triumph, basking in glory. On the way, he saw the streets bustling with activity, and knew that someone must be celebrating a wedding. He couldn't help but feel moved. After all, in my previous life, because we had left under false pretenses, we didn't have much money. So our wedding was simple, with just a red silk ribbon. I didn't even have a wedding dress. Only a red flower pinned to my hair. At the time, he was filled with guilt. Wait a little longer. Ah, Juan. Wait a little longer. Once I've established myself, I'll give you a grand wedding. But in the end, he never kept his promise. He admitted that he did indeed regret it afterward. After living a life of luxury, even simple food and no achievements made him regret it every moment. So when he heard that his younger brother had been promoted again, he got drunk. At that moment, he thought, if he could do it all over again, he would never make the same choice. So when he opened his eyes again, he found himself back at the beginning. And when he saw me, his first thought was to flee. It should have been like this, we had never met. And we had nothing to do with each other. But why? When he took Du Qian'er's handkerchief and saw Pei Wan, did he feel so panicked and guilty? Hui Yan never understood. Until these days, while he was out on the battlefield, his men noticed something was off and asked him. He tried to hide it but eventually confessed his confusion. His men understood immediately and said lightly, "What's so hard about that? Make that woman your concubine and marry someone of equal status as your wife." But how could she be a concubine? Hui Yan was startled and blurted out instinctively, "Why not? A daughter of a low-ranking official becoming a general's concubine is a blessing for 8 generations. She should be overjoyed. Does she not know her place?" His subordinate spoke as if it were obvious. "With your talent, if she truly understands you and loves you, she would naturally be generous and make way for you." Hui Yan. He suddenly saw the light. That's right. He still loved Pei Wan. In his previous life, he and Pei Wan had faked their deaths and left because his family refused to let Pei Wan become his legitimate wife. Now, he didn't want to give her up. So why not let her be his concubine? He wouldn't treat her harshly, it was just the title of concubine. Pei Wan loved him so much, she wouldn't care. Having come to this realization, Hui Yan returned in high spirits. He happened to encounter a wedding procession and asked cheerfully, "Who is getting married today?" The others replied, "The Pei family." "Is it the second Miss Pei? Why isn't her older sister, Pei Wan, seeing her off?" Pei Wan is the bride. Clang. On the streets of Jinling, everyone saw the once invincible general lose his composure, dropping his long sword. His face was filled with anger. No one knew who had upset him. Of course, he wasn't the only one upset. At the Du family mansion, the mother-in-law was pointing at me and saying to Du Qian'er, "Qian'er, call your sister-in-law." "What kind of sister-in-law are you talking about? I refuse to be the younger sister-in-law of such a person." Du Qian'er stomped her feet in anger and ran off. The scene fell silent for a moment. No one had expected the second Miss Du to be so headstrong. Under the red veil, I couldn't see the expressions of the others. But my mother-in-law merely gave an awkward laugh and said lightly, "Look at this child. She's been spoiled since childhood. She must be jealous because her older brother is getting married, fearing that he won't favor her anymore in the future." A few words. And that was that. Even if I were as foolish as a log, I knew this was my mother-in-law's way of intimidating me on my first day in the family. Or perhaps it wasn't just her. My father-in-law stood by silently. while my younger brother-in-law continued drinking at the tavern, even going so far as to say, "A sickly man getting married? Bad luck. I'm not going." And my husband was a coward. Du Shamshu's eldest son, Du Ruolin, was hailed as a child prodigy from a young age. If Du Shamshu was the old chancellor's favorite disciple, then this child was the one the old chancellor had personally raised. Alas, talent is often cut short by fate. At the age of 10, he fell into the water and never fully recovered. The court physicians spoke in riddles, but their diagnoses were all the same. This young master Du clearly had the mark of a short life. From then on, no one in the family paid him any attention. Even his first marriage was arranged by the Du family for the sake of appearances, marrying him off to a girl who was already on her deathbed. The second son of the Du family once mocked, "A sickly one marrying a sickly one, they'll both die young." And that's that. Alas, the girl passed away before the wedding ceremony was even completed. From then on, the eldest son of the Du family became a laughingstock once again. It was only the old chancellor and the chancellor's wife who remembered him, and it was they who arranged this marriage. This is why, when the chancellor's wife first proposed the marriage to me, my mother was so resistant. Our family may not be a prominent one, but we're not so desperate to sell our daughter for wealth. Why did you agree to this marriage? Ah, Juan? As soon as the chancellor's wife left, my mother pulled me aside and asked urgently, "Indeed, our family's wealth is not because of my father, but because of my mother." My mother was the daughter of a wealthy merchant, but in the hierarchy of professions, scholars, farmers, artisans, and merchants were at the bottom. Yet she was extremely wealthy. Even the aristocratic families looked down on her. That's why she married my father, a low-ranking official. I don't regret it, but I explained carefully, "Mother, I'm getting married either way. Since that's the case, why not marry someone who can give me the highest status? Whether this man is good or not, no one knows. But whether he is wealthy or powerful is clear to all. Even though Du Daigongzi is a sickly weakling and not favored by the Du family, the old chancellor and his wife care about him." Just now, after I agreed to the marriage, the chancellor's wife personally assured me, "Child, you may rest assured. If you suffer any injustice after marrying into that family, come to me, and I will stand by your side." It's clear that, given my status, this is the best marriage I could possibly hope for. And besides, didn't father already agree? Mentioning my father, my mother's face froze, filled with hatred and anger. All these years, he's been keeping a mistress behind my back and fathering an illegitimate child. As long as it didn't come to my attention, I could pretend not to know. But I never imagined that after just a day of marriage, he would betray me for his own career and sell my daughter. My father had kept a mistress, and she found out 3 years ago. But by then it was already too late. That mistress had been with him for years and had even given birth to a son. A divorce was out of the question. Not only was my father renowned for his unwavering devotion to his wife, but he would never allow such a scandal to be exposed. And as for the mistress and her child, my mother would never agree. Let me divorce him and leave all the family fortune to that adulterous couple and their bastard? They think they're so clever. As long as I'm alive, they'll never set foot in this house. So you see, my mother, who prided herself on being a skilled wife, couldn't even read her own husband's heart. In my previous life, I chose a different path, but I wasn't happy either. So why am I still dwelling on this? Whether the eldest son of the Du family is good or not. Whether the Du family is good or not. I don't care. As long as marrying into the Du family gives me the status of a lady, ensuring I have food and clothing, and no one dares to bully me. That's the real, tangible benefit I can hold on to. So, Mother, I'm willing to marry him. Now that I've entered the household as the new bride, my younger sister-in-law is giving me the cold shoulder. My mother-in-law and father-in-law are intimidating me. And my younger brother-in-law shows no respect at all. My husband even used a rooster as a substitute. They think I'll be humiliated and ashamed. But they don't know that compared to the endless fields I had to farm, the endless silkworms I had to raise, the endless handkerchiefs I had to embroider, and the endless tasks of tending to Hui Yan in my previous life, it's not even worth mentioning. Indeed, what's the point of love and affection? Just go farm 2 acres of land and you'll be content. Therefore, after my mother-in-law said that, I only spoke softly. Qianer didn't mean it. Besides, Alwan also has a younger sister. Now that she sees Qianer is similar in temperament to her younger sister, Alwan is also pleased. That's a lie. My younger sister is the most obedient and understanding. She even cried when I was sent off to marry. But others who heard my response only whispered among themselves, saying that the Secretary of State's mansion had married a sensible and considerate daughter-in-law, while this second young miss was so arrogant and unbecoming. The mother-in-law seemed taken aback by the outcome. A fleeting expression crossed her eyes, and the smile on her lips faded. She spoke coldly. If that is the case, then let the wedding ceremony proceed. If Ruolin is frail, my daughter-in-law is so sensible. We can use something else as a substitute, she won't mind. I wouldn't mind at all. I'm marrying the status of Lady Du, not her son. Even if it were a dog, I'd still go through with the ceremony. I knelt down calmly, and the master of ceremonies announced loudly, "First bow to heaven and earth." The rooster flapped its wings. "Second bow to your parents." The crowd began to whisper. "Husband and wife. Face each other." "Wait!" Someone rushed out of the crowd and spoke loudly. 13. The ceremony was interrupted. All I could see was red cloth. But I recognized that voice immediately. I clenched my hands, stood up, and looked in that direction. General Huo? The others were also surprised. The second son of the Huo family led the troops into battle and returned victorious. The eldest son was even granted the title of ever-victorious general. He just returned today and is at the height of his glory. Why would he suddenly come here? Could it be that the Du family is hosting a banquet? But the Du family didn't even care about the son and his wife, let alone this marriage. Why would they invite them? But given General Hui Yan's current prominence, his mother-in-law and father-in-law naturally greeted him with smiles. "General Huo, you honor us with your presence. Why didn't the servants announce your arrival earlier? Please sit down, General, and have a cup of celebratory wine." But Hui Yan, clearly overcome by his emotions, spoke without thinking, his tone harsh. "I didn't come here to drink wedding wine." His tone was unfriendly, which was a slap in the face for his mother-in-law and father-in-law. Their expressions were quite unpleasant. On the other hand, Hui Yan, who had traveled a long distance, looked fierce and imposing, still wearing his armor, and under everyone's gaze. He stared intently and stubbornly at me. Everyone followed his gaze. This was completely unexpected. We had already agreed beforehand that we would start anew, have nothing to do with each other, and go our separate ways. Why did Hui Yan rush in during my wedding ceremony and stare at me in front of so many people? This wasn't just about what others would think if word got out. How would I ever face the Du family? I steadied my nerves but still instinctively took a step back. But the next moment, a hand gripped my waist, and the faint scent of bitter medicine wafted toward me. I turned my head in shock. Under the red veil, all I could see was the other person's wedding robe. Their voice was cold and weak. "General Huo, you're here to find my younger sister, aren't you? However, this is the moment when I am performing the wedding ceremony with my new wife. Perhaps you could wait for the servants to announce your arrival, and then the general could sit down and have a cup of wedding wine?" The marriage between Hui Yan and Du Qian'er had not been made public, but the two families had already agreed to it. Among the prominent families of Jinling, everyone was well aware of this. Saying it this way was not entirely incorrect. At least it gave Hui Yan the best possible excuse. But when Hui Yan saw Ruolin's hand around my waist, his anger flared even more. "I did not come here. Husband!" I suddenly called out, my figure swaying slightly as I leaned halfway into the person beside me, looking as though I were tired. The person beside me stiffened, paused for a moment, then steadied me. Such behavior between newlyweds was indeed affectionate. It was like a bucket of cold water, dousing Hui Yan completely. Ruolin? Seeing her eldest son, the mother-in-law wasn't as happy as expected. Instead, she spoke coldly. "Why are you here? Aren't you sick?" The person holding me coughed twice but didn't respond warmly to his mother. He said indifferently, "This is the day of my son's wedding ceremony. As husband and wife, even if there's only a single breath left, I should accompany the bride to complete the ceremony." After speaking, he looked toward Hui Yan's back. "My younger sister has arrived." As soon as the words left his mouth, Du Qian'er's figure appeared, but she no longer bore the same hatred toward me. Instead, she was filled with joy. "General, why have you come?" Hui Yan, who had been overwhelmed by emotion, finally came to his senses, slowly turned around, and looked at the shy Du Qian'er. His back was drenched in cold sweat. He finally realized what he had just done. Now that he had achieved success and was about to marry the daughter of the Minister of Revenue. A match made in heaven. If he had caused a scene at the wedding out of a moment of impulse, everything would be ruined. The wedding would be called off. His father would be disappointed, and the censors would impeach him. He would once again become the worthless Hui Yan of his past life. He would only be able to look up to his younger brother's glory. All because of one pei yuan. Was it worth it? Hui Yan gave his answer, each word spoken with difficulty. "I came to find Miss Du. I came in a hurry and didn't bring a wedding gift. I truly apologize to Mr. Du and Mrs. Du. I apologize for my rudeness." The answer was, "It wasn't worth it." After this incident, the rooster used to humiliate me was removed. At the other end of the red silk ribbon, someone was holding it just like me. Hui Yan sat among the male guests, watching this scene. Finally, the couple bows to each other. In a daze, he recalled the shy girl from his previous life who had married him without a lavish wedding gown or a red flower on her head. He had promised to give her the grandest wedding. The sound rang in his ears, and his eyes turned red. Enter the bridal chamber. The wedding proceeded smoothly, despite the earlier commotion. Once the guests had departed, Ruolin entered the bridal chamber and dismissed the servants. The room was lit by flickering red candles. Shrouded in silence, he lifted my red veil. Before my eyes was a handsome yet pale face. Even in his wedding attire, he looked lifeless. The rumors were true. The eldest son of the Du family was indeed a sickly man. He had the appearance of someone who would die young. I blinked, but he had already lowered the veil and said, "I don't care about what happened today, and I won't dwell on it. After all, you didn't marry me willingly. You've miscalculated. With my weak body, I can't give you what you want. On the contrary, I'm not well liked in this household. If you marry me, you'll only end up like me. Therefore, if you behave yourself and stay in the East Courtyard, I'll ensure your safety. But if you insist on harboring unrealistic desires and clinging to others, don't blame me for the consequences." His eyes were filled with nothing but disgust, not for me, but for this world. He looked like someone who had given up on everything. "Let it be. After I die, I'll give you a divorce decree and some money. You don't have to remain chaste for me. And don't bother me. After speaking, he didn't even glance back before walking toward the door. I called out, "Where are you going?" "My husband?" He paused, turned to look at me, and furrowed his brows. He clearly disliked the title husband, but didn't know how to refute it, as we had indeed gone through the wedding ceremony. Therefore, he could only say, "The study." He had no intention of sharing a bed with me. But just as he was about to leave, I pulled him back. How could he leave? It was our wedding night. And if the groom left, I would be the laughingstock of the village tomorrow. That would jeopardize my status and identity, and I couldn't allow it. He was already in poor health, and before he could react, I had pulled him onto the bed. He coughed incessantly, his anger and fear mingling. "What are you doing?" "Of course it's the wedding night. The palanquin has been lowered, and the ceremony has been performed. How can you say I didn't want to marry you?" He paused, then laughed sarcastically. "With my sickly body, who would willingly marry me?" "Me?" I didn't hesitate, stripping off my hairpin and skirt under his stunned gaze. A newlywed wealthy husband who has already died, such a good thing is exactly what I desire now. So, the sickly, cold-hearted eldest son of the Du family had his belt undone by me, and I covered his lips. "Husband, let's consummate our marriage." The next day, hearing the servants of the Du family knocking on the door, I got out of bed feeling refreshed. The door opened, and the old maid beside the mother-in-law stared inside, her eyes wide. The next moment, she dropped the basin she was holding and rushed to the bedside with a cry. "Master!" Ruolin's neck was mottled with red, wrapped in a blanket with a stern expression, looking like a virgin bride who had been defiled. Ignoring the old woman's shocked gaze, he clenched his teeth. "Such base behavior dishonors our family and is unbecoming of a gentleman. Pei Wan. You, cough cough." The servants gathered around in a panic. I straightened my collar. "What a joke. I'm a woman, not a base person, and certainly not a gentleman. What's wrong with spending the wedding night with my own husband? It's only natural." Ruolin was also annoyed, threw the handkerchief on the bed into the old nurse's arms, and scolded in a low voice. "Get out!" The old nurse saw the red stain on the handkerchief and couldn't help but speak the truth. "You actually." After all, she was sent by the mother-in-law to watch the spectacle. Ruolin was a sickly young master. And with me, a disliked daughter-in-law. There was plenty of embarrassment to go around. But who could have imagined? The old maid looked at me, then at Ruolin's pale face, and the obvious red spots on his white neck. Ruolin. The veins on Ruolin's forehead bulged. "Get out!" Everyone scrambled to leave. After the eldest son of the Du family fell ill and nearly drowned, he plummeted from the heavens to the depths of despair. His temperament completely transformed. He often hid in the courtyard, refusing to see anyone, even going so far as to bathe and wash himself alone. If servants accidentally entered, they would inevitably be scolded and left red-faced. Everyone knew this. Indeed, though the young master had become an unwanted son in his parents' eyes, with the old chancellor still alive, Du Shamshu and his wife would only tolerate him, no matter how much they disliked him. The crowd dispersed. Ruolin angrily threw off the blankets, but his hand trembled slightly as he reached for his robe. The next moment, a hand naturally took it and handed it to him. He raised his eyes and glared at me fiercely. "I don't want your charity. Get out of here." He roughly took his clothes, but as soon as he put on his undergarments, he was drenched in sweat. But I stood motionless, watching him intently. His pride and dignity were clashing, and he grew increasingly disheveled as he dressed. After several failed attempts, he punched the blanket. He collapsed onto the bed in despair, covering his eyes with his hands. The sound of his shallow breathing echoed loudly in the quiet room. I didn't say anything. Just quickly dressed him. He muttered. Pei Wan. You said you married me willingly. But now that you see me as useless trash, don't you think your lie is ridiculous? I was confused. How am I useless trash? Wasn't last night great? Mentioning last night was a mistake. As soon as I did, Ruolin collapsed in despair. Then suddenly opened his eyes and glared at me. You dared to be so reckless. Forcing me. I'll never forgive you. What are you babbling about? I bit his lip and smirked. There will be plenty of days when you won't forgive me. I certainly didn't want our future to be filled with plain soup and water. He clearly understood the meaning behind my words. His face turning bright red in disbelief. Shame on you. How strange. We've already consummated our marriage. What's there to be ashamed of? We saw everything about each other last night. Ruolin was stubborn. He believed he didn't have much time left. So he didn't care about anything. His in-laws felt the same way. So when he and I went to pay respects to his parents, they didn't give me any face. His father started first. Ruolin is weak. Now that you've married into the family, you must take good care of him and do your best. Ruolin sneered. I'm sick. Not disabled. What's there to take care of? His mother-in-law said. It would be best if you could give birth to a grandson. Don't be a barren hen who can't lay eggs and bring shame upon us. Ruolin retorted. If I can't have children, why should another woman take the blame? Mother, you speak so nicely. If I were to give birth to a grandson before Ruolin, would you dare to laugh then? After that, Qianer spoke up angrily. What do you mean by that? Older brother? How dare you speak to our parents like that? And you? She pointed at me and accused me. You can't even control your own husband. What use are you? I opened my mouth to speak, but the people around me already laughed coldly. Is that how you speak to your elder brother and sister-in-law? Disrespecting your elders and shouting like that, what good are you? Bang! Ruolin, who had returned from a drunken binge at the tavern, slammed the table and shouted. Ruolin, don't think that just because you're a sickly weakling, the whole family has to spoil you. You've disrespected your parents and made your younger sister cry. I'll teach you a lesson today. Ruolin shot him a disdainful glance and sneered. Who do you think you are? You have no right to speak to me like that. Ruolin, the matriarch, who had remained silent when Ruolin had spoken to others, turned pale when he mentioned her youngest son and scolded. How dare you speak to your younger brother like that? In the future, this family will rely on your younger brother. She believed it was only natural. Ruolin would eventually pass away, and the Du family would naturally fall to Ruolin. Not only you, but even you, the new wife. If anything happens to you in the future, won't your younger brother have to take care of his widowed sister-in-law? Ruolin shouted in response. I don't want to. The Du family is all mine. I don't want to take care of a sickly man and a widow. Such blunt words weren't the first time he'd spoken them. No wonder Ruolin was so harsh with them. Completely different from how he'd spoken to me last night. I smiled, placed my hand on Ruolin's forearm, and spoke before him. What are you saying, little brother? Though my husband is frail, he's not about to die young. As his younger brother, cursing your own elder brother like this, if word gets out, it'll only bring you trouble when you pursue a career in the future. Qianer disliked me the most. Seeing me speak, she was about to retort, but I turned to look at her instead. Little sister-in-law is about to marry. If the news of you defying your elder brother spreads, who knows if your marriage will be affected? What nonsense are you talking about? Brother Huo would never reject me. When it came to marriage, Qianer was so angry she stomped her foot. Nonsense. Whether Hui Yan marries me or not is none of my business. I raised my eyes to meet my in-laws. My husband spoke out of turn. It was due to his long illness and pent-up emotions. Not intentional. The bride will apologize to her parents on his behalf. However, I changed the subject and spoke slowly. Speaking of which, our dynasty has always followed the rule of establishing the eldest son as the heir. If the eldest son dies, the eldest grandson takes his place. If both are absent, then the second son assumes the family responsibility. Please forgive me for speaking frankly, but what you just said is highly inappropriate and must not be repeated. You agree, don't you, father-in-law? The path to officialdom is fraught with obstacles. To have reached this position requires utmost caution and vigilance. A single misstep could lead to being reported by political enemies, and the trouble that follows would be impossible to shake off. My father-in-law naturally understood the meaning behind my words. He narrowed his eyes and looked at me for 2 seconds. I remained expressionless, as if I had said nothing earlier, innocently facing them. My mother-in-law couldn't hold back and pointed at me. You are correct. My father-in-law finally spoke, his tone cold. Even though we are at home, everyone must be careful with their words and actions. Especially you two. He pointed at Du Qianer and Du Ruolin. If you speak without restraint again, you will be confined to the courtyard. But he didn't even glance at me or Du Ruolin before leaving. As he passed by, he said indifferently, "As for you two, take care of yourselves." As the head of the family and a high-ranking official, what I couldn't stand was being manipulated and threatened. Du Ruolin, the eldest son, was disobedient, but he could tolerate his rebuttal. But I, a new bride who had just entered the family, was also being disobedient. That was simply being ungrateful. But what did that have to do with me? They could like me all they wanted, but it wouldn't bring me any silver or power. On the contrary, it would only bring endless humiliation. Why should I endure it? I haven't forgotten why I married into this family. Fortunately, the chancellor's wife hadn't forgotten either. The next day, she personally visited the Du mansion. First, she checked on Du Ruolin to make sure he was unharmed, and even looked more lively than before. Then she took my hand and smiled. I knew he was a good child. He has a very pleasing appearance. Finally, she turned to my mother-in-law and said, "Yueling, now that the eldest son has married and the bride has entered the household, you should have already taught her the affairs of the inner courtyard." The words were spoken politely, but anyone with eyes could see what she meant. Before a young woman leaves her family, she is already taught how to manage household affairs. How could she wait until she arrives at her husband's home for her mother-in-law to teach her? The chancellor's wife was admonishing the mother-in-law not to show favoritism and to grant the new bride the authority to manage the household. The mother-in-law forced a smile upon hearing this. She cast a heavy glance at me. The old chancellor had a son stationed in the southwest in an important position, and the couple naturally missed him dearly. To put it bluntly, the old chancellor had always favored the Du family not because of Du Shangshu, his disciple, but because of Du Ruolin, whom he had raised like a grandson. This was especially evident after Du Ruolin fell ill after drowning. After that, Du Ruolin was deliberately ignored by Du Ruolin's parents, and even the prime minister's wife came to persuade them. If Ruolin really has a short life, he is still your child. How can you be so short-sighted? Why are you favoring your younger son and treating him so badly? The mother-in-law's response was flawless. Yueling is being unfair. This child eats and wears the same as Ruolin. When have I ever neglected him? The chancellor's wife was speechless. Indeed, their material needs were the same, but there were things that couldn't be seen. For example, behind closed doors, the mother-in-law would grow frustrated. When he was born, it was already a misfortune. I had hoped he would be a great talent, but in just a few years, He's become a sickly weakling. At least he's earned the Chancellor's pity. Otherwise, with that self-destructive attitude, I can't stand looking at him. She sneered. You dare say I'm biased? The eldest son is useless if I don't raise the second son properly. Will we end up living off a dead man? It was her bias that led the Chancellor's wife to this situation. This was the promise she made to me when she arranged the marriage. And it was also a token of protection for Ruolin. But no matter the reason, the authority to manage the household is now mine. In the courtyard, as I fiddled with the abacus to check the accounts, Ruolin, provided by WX who carrot Bobus, smiled mockingly. This is the real reason you married into this family, isn't it? My fingers paused, and I looked up innocently. What are you talking about? Husband? I don't understand. But inside, I felt a tingle of excitement. The Du family was truly wealthy. Now, even those who looked down on me would have to treat me with respect. As for my mother-in-law, she hadn't spared any effort to sabotage me. But don't forget, my mother was the daughter of a wealthy merchant. How could she possibly outdo me in accounting? Time and again, she was outmaneuvered by me. The only one I couldn't deal with directly was Ruolin, the younger brother-in-law. Originally, both Du Qian'er and he disliked me. But Du Qian'er's expenses were limited to buying jewelry and clothes. But Ruolin demands much more. He'll say he wants to play polo today or go to a restaurant tomorrow, spending hundreds of taels each time. Plus, he's been spoiled by his mother-in-law and has no regard for others. Since I'm new to the family, I can't interfere too much. As a result, he often got his way. But that was all. I finally got what I wanted. I didn't get my husband's love, but I got real silver and power. Ruolin truly lives up to his reputation as a child prodigy. His body may be injured, but his mind remains sharp. He sees everything clearly, but he's simply grown tired of exposing the truth. Now, he sits beside me, taking a small revenge for the night of our wedding when I forced him to submit. Enjoy your happiness now. In 3 or 5 years, you'll have no such pleasure left. I ask, why 3 or 5 years? Ruolin's pale, handsome face curled into a wicked smile. Because in 3 or 5 years, I'll be dead from illness. And you'll have no children. My mother will surely rush to give all the family fortune to her own son. Otherwise, do you think she would have handed over the family authority to you so easily? Clink. An abacus bead fell to the ground. Ruolin coughed again, his voice faint. Perhaps it won't even take 3 or 5 years. I rolled my eyes and stood up abruptly. Ruolin thought I would pamper him and treat him with care. At least not like before, when I always took advantage of his weakness to force him to comply. In fact, he was half right. I was indeed kinder to him. At least I had found him many doctors. But his illness had been rooted for years. And even the imperial physicians were powerless. It was Ruolin who had to drink a few more bowls of medicine because of it. But that was all. I still forced him to do things he didn't want to do. Dressed him quickly and neatly. And once he was up, he was as fresh as a daisy, ready to start another day of managing the accounts and making money. Everything seemed unchanged. I quickly took control of all the affairs in the Du household. Ruolin continued to go out every day with his friends. When someone asked him why he wasn't preparing for the imperial examinations, he waved it off indifferently. With my talents, what could I possibly fail to pass? Even if I fail, I still have my father. I'll still live a good life. Let alone the fact that the Du family will all be mine in the future. Meanwhile, Du Qian'er was busy courting Hui Yan. Several times, the two of them were spotted in the backyard with me. Hui Yan always seemed to want to say something to me, but he held back because Du Qian'er was present. He had finally fulfilled his lifelong wish. This time around, He had abandoned his impulsive ways and had the backing of the Huo family. So everything was going smoothly. Marrying into the Du family in the future would be like adding wings to a tiger. I had no thoughts on the matter. But I asked Du Qianer, "Are you really going to marry Hui Yan?" Du Qianer guarded against me. "Why not? You're just jealous that I'm marrying well. Aren't you? Don't think I don't know, Pei Shu wants to steal my husband. And as my older sister, who knows if you'll help her sabotage me? Pei Wan. Let me tell you. Don't try to outsmart me. If mother finds out, you'll be the one in trouble." She demanded more dowry. As the one in charge of the accounts, I couldn't be stingy. I sighed and said nothing more. As for my mother-in-law, she remained quiet. At least, we could maintain a superficial peace. Du Ruolin was at a loss. We really did manage to get by for half a year, bumping into each other along the way. They say that even a day as husband and wife brings 100 days of kindness, besides forcing him to comply every 2 weeks. I was actually pretty good to him. At least I took the trouble to dress him properly. Even the medicine I gave him was carefully selected. There was one time when he coughed up blood. That was the first time I saw Du Ruolin in such a state, pale as a ghost, barely breathing. It seemed like he might die at any moment. I frantically called countless doctors, but he just looked at me rushing around and said, "Pei Wan, forget it." I stopped and turned around. There was still blood on the corner of his mouth, but he smiled at me with a rare, self-deprecating smile. "Let it all go. It's as I said before, cough cough. After I die, in the first shelf of the study, there's a small box. Inside is a letter of divorce and enough silver to ensure your stability for life. Don't mourn me. If you wish to remarry, do so. Don't argue with my mother either. Without me, you're the only outsider left in this household. You can't compete with her. So," he took a deep breath, "take the silver and leave. They say that when a person is about to die, their words are kind. Even Du Ruolin and I, this pair of lovebirds with such a shallow connection, had to exchange a few bitter words at this moment. But I didn't. I suddenly rushed forward, grabbed his collar, and spoke each word clearly under his surprised gaze. Don't die, Du Ruolin. I don't want you to die. At least, not now. I should be a cold-hearted person. If he dies, I haven't even established myself yet, I'll lose. Just as he said, right now, I can't compete with his mother. I found him so many doctors, but he remains unconscious. Everyone said there was no hope for him. The Du mansion had already begun preparing his funeral. I became the pitiful new bride in everyone's eyes. Married into the family for only half a year and now facing widowhood. Even the old chancellor and his wife came to take a look, shook their heads, and left. My mother brought my younger sister to see me. She said my younger sister had found a good family, and they would choose an auspicious day to marry her off. She said she was living comfortably, and her father was in good health. She said, "Alwan, if it really comes to that, come back home." She hesitated, unable to say more. My younger sister's eyes welled up with tears, but she was stopped by our mother. I noticed and grabbed her hand. "Mother, is everything really all right at home?" My mother gripped my hand tightly and replied firmly, "Silly girl. With your mother here, what could possibly go wrong? Don't forget, I've made it this far. I'm not someone to be pushed around. As long as you're here, everything will be fine." Everyone had left. Only Du Ruolin remained on the bed, unconscious for months, her breath faint and barely audible. A breeze blew by. A white dove landed by my side, with a piece of paper tied to its leg. I looked up, untied it, and after reading the contents, my expression turned cold. I raised my hand and placed it over the candle flame, staring intently to ensure that the words "if you say yes, I will help you fake your death and escape" were burned to ashes. Bang! At that moment, the door was pushed open. The old maid by the stepmother's side looked down at me. "Lady Du, you are wanted here." The calm I had worked so hard to maintain was shattered. I had just entered the main hall when a teacup was thrown at me, sending tea splashing onto my clothes. Then my mother-in-law shouted, "How dare you stand there? Kneel down." I didn't argue and knelt down obediently. I looked up and saw that everyone was there. My father-in-law sat in the main seat. Du Qianer gloated. My mother-in-law was stern without needing to raise her voice. And Du Ruolin echoed, "That's right. It's all her fault. She should kneel down." I spoke honestly. "I don't know what wrong I've done to make my father-in-law and mother-in-law so angry." You still have the nerve to ask." My mother-in-law sneered. My father-in-law spoke up. "I ask you. You manage the household accounts. When Ruolin asked you for silver, did you give it to him?" I spoke the truth, what my younger brother asked for. I naturally gave him. "Then do you know what he did with the silver you gave him?" My father-in-law's tone changed. At that moment, I noticed that Du Ruolin had clearly been beaten, with bruises on his face. I was puzzled. My younger brother's private affairs are none of my business as his sister-in-law. How dare I pry? Yes. If it were the usual monthly allowance, it would indeed be inappropriate to ask. But you gave him 10,000 silver coins. Don't you think you should ask where he spent it? My father-in-law glared at me angrily. Do you know that he gambled away every single coin you gave him? As the eldest sister-in-law, I don't know how you managed to sway the chancellor's wife into meddling in our family affairs, even taking away the authority to manage the household from you. The mother-in-law seemed disappointed. But I trusted the chancellor's wife and trusted you. So after handing over the authority, I didn't interfere, to avoid others saying I was biased toward my younger son. But I never expected you to be so incompetent. Not being able to manage the accounts is one thing, but letting Ruolin get into gambling. How can the Du family tolerate you? I told you so. The daughter of a merchant woman, what else can she do besides use dirty tricks? Your parents let her run wild. And now look at the trouble she's caused. Du Qianer added fuel to the fire, making it sound like the Du family had treated me so well. After finishing, she looked at me with a smirk and said, "Sister-in-law, my older brother is about to lose his life. Everyone knows that father only has this younger son left, who will have to take on the family responsibilities in the future. Even if you're as heartless as you are, you shouldn't have led him down this path. The imperial examinations are just around the corner." Mentioning the imperial examinations, the old man's face darkened even more, and he glared at Du Ruolin. Wretch! Du Ruolin wouldn't admit any wrongdoing. He pointed at me without hesitation. "Father, this isn't my fault. It's all her doing. I gave her whatever she wanted. I heard that this is called praising someone to their death. It's a dirty trick used by those who fight over family fortune in big mansions. It's clear she wants the family fortune. So she deliberately got me addicted to gambling." Every word was a condemnation. Finally, the mother-in-law added, "It's true that this family is unfit for public. Even yesterday, the father of her lowly official husband's mistress came looking for trouble. And he brought along a son who's almost 8 years old. What does the mother-in-law mean by that?" I suddenly understood, and my expression finally changed. She curled her lips, satisfied with my reaction. "Don't you know? Your mother is jealous and cannot tolerate others. Your father kept a concubine outside, and yesterday she came to cause a scene. Now the whole of Jinling is in an uproar. In my opinion, your moral character is lacking, and it runs in the family. Now that I think about it, perhaps if Lian hadn't woken up, it would have been your doing." Who knows if you're harboring resentment for marrying a sickly man? I retorted. I've never felt resentment. And I've never harmed my husband in the slightest. If Ruolin doesn't wake up. Who knows? My mother-in-law laughed lightly. You're so malicious, my family can't tolerate you anymore. Here's your divorce papers. You should go back to where you came from. But I looked at them and asked. My husband hasn't woken up yet. Where did you get the divorce papers? I wrote it for my elder brother. Ruolin was desperate to find someone to take the blame. He pulled a piece of paper from his waist and threw it at my feet. Get out! Get out now! How amusing. Given Ruolin's hatred for this man, if he found out he had written the divorce papers for him, he would be furious. Fortunately, everyone found out quickly. Behind me, a hoarse, low voice rang out. For me? Why would you die for me? Everyone looked over in shock. Ruolin! Ruolin was being supported by others. His already pale face looked even worse due to his terrible mood. He walked behind me. What's wrong? I'm not dead. Are you all sad? How could that be? His mother spoke with difficulty. He didn't look at his biased mother but instead looked at me with a hint of guilt. I came too late. I let you suffer. I didn't move. Pay. Alwan? When I looked again, he had already stopped. It was because he met my reddened eyes. It's okay. As long as my husband is safe. Alwan isn't wronged. His lips trembled slightly, as if he had been deeply moved. But I held back my tears and looked at the others, saying, earlier, everyone criticized Pei Wan. It's clear that as a daughter-in-law, I've been lacking. I admit it. But please let me ask a few questions. When my younger brother-in-law came to ask for money, I also said the amount was too large and couldn't be spent lightly. But he caused a commotion in the inner courtyard, claiming you had agreed. Is that true? The mother-in-law denied it vehemently. Of course it's a lie. I continued. Then I will have someone verify this with you. Why have you been refusing to see anyone? The mother-in-law opened her mouth but clamped it shut, insisting. I'm an old woman now. I've already handed over the authority to you. If I meddle in everything, people will talk behind my back. She was about to give in, but the father-in-law immediately interjected. If that's the case, am I dead? Why didn't you ask me? I said. I did ask. My father-in-law immediately retorted. You dare to slander your father-in-law in front of everyone. When did I ever see you ask me? I said. Since I entered this household, I have recorded my husband's monthly health condition and handed it to you for review. This matter was also mentioned in those records. The old man never responded before, so I assumed it was tacit approval. I truly believed it was settled. Or are you saying the old man never even looked at it? My father-in-law. Of course he wouldn't admit it. Of course I've seen it. How could he admit to ignoring his own son and letting him live or die as he pleased? But if he had seen it, why would this have happened today? My father-in-law stammered. Perhaps. I must have overlooked it. I chimed in. You must have overlooked it. Right? You overlooked it once. But my younger brother gave money over 10 times. And I recorded it all. Yet you overlooked it every time. My father-in-law. Ruolin sneered. At this point, there was nothing left to understand. He didn't even bother to argue. As if his heart had already grown cold. He simply said, if my parents truly favor the younger son so much, taking advantage of my illness and bullying my wife, then today I will send someone to invite the elders of the clan. Let them all witness it as they expel me from the family registry, leaving me to fend for myself. How dare you? Family matters should not be aired in public. You're bringing shame upon me. The old man flew into a rage upon hearing this. Ruolin retorted just as harshly. But isn't it shameful for you to bully your eldest son's wife just to secure the family inheritance for your younger son? Who told her to marry a sickly man like you? Don't blame her for your inability to protect her. Ruolin had no idea how serious the situation was. He only knew that his older brother and parents had finally come to blows. So he decided to speak his mind. Little did he know that his words would leave the entire room in silence. The silence was broken by a servant from my mother's family rushing in to report. "Miss, hurry home. Something has happened to the master." What had happened? It seemed that yesterday, his concubine had come to the door with her son, flaunting her power, and my mother had driven them away for no reason. That night, my father and mother had a huge argument. It was all about him wanting to take the concubine as a concubine, have the son recognized as his own, or else he would divorce my mother. With the concubine causing such a scene, the good reputation he had maintained for years was ruined. But my mother only laughed coldly. She refuses to agree to take the concubine in, and if he divorces her, she'll report him to the authorities. She hasn't committed any of the 7 offenses that would justify a divorce. But my father accuses her of being jealous. However, it was my father who insisted on taking the concubine, claiming it was out of deep affection for her. Yet he rejected her. She hasn't given birth to a son, but my father has always claimed in front of his colleagues that he only wants her and doesn't care about the son. The fault isn't hers, she has all the time in the world to wait. But to make her leave and give up her position? Forget it! My father, enraged, left home, presumably to find that concubine. But he happened to catch her in the act with her lover. Now, even the paternity of the son is in doubt. In a fit of rage, he collapsed and suffered a stroke. The concubine and her lover, fearing a scandal, fled with the child in the dead of night. By the time someone found my father, he was already in a coma, unable to utter a single word. My mother was quite satisfied with this. I only intended to punish his heart, but I never expected him to be so weak. Well, it's for the best that he's paralyzed, at least I won't have to look at him anymore. Ah, Juan. This is the fate of a faithless man. By the way, did your mother-in-law succeed in her scheme? Yes. Everything was part of my plan. Ruolin has been recuperating these past few days, so I knew he would wake up today. I also knew that my mother-in-law had sent that mistress to cause trouble. And I knew that my younger brother-in-law had given them money to gamble. But it didn't go quite as my mother-in-law had planned. My younger brother-in-law wasn't just pretending to gamble, he was really gambling. Now, her plan has failed, and she has lost both the man and the money. On the way back, Ruolin was unusually silent. It wasn't until nightfall that he said to me, "Juan, I'm going to take part in this year's imperial examination." Ruolin's words had really hurt him. He said, "I thought that if I just let myself live and die, they would be satisfied. But I didn't expect that before I could even die and give you a divorce letter so you could leave, they couldn't wait to harm you." He was right. I'm helpless. So they dared to do this. He wasn't a malicious person by nature. But after being ill for so long, his words had become sharp. Deep down, he didn't want to drag me into his troubles. So he said, "I'll try to live longer. At least, to make sure you're taken care of." See, he was so gullible, actually believing that without him, I'd suffer terribly. I smiled, wiped the corner of my eye, and lay in his arms, replying, "Then you must live longer." The child prodigy truly lives up to his name. After deciding to participate in the imperial examinations, he personally went to see the old chancellor. The old chancellor, who valued talent, was naturally delighted to hear the news. He was eager to impart all his knowledge. As a result, he's been quite busy lately, and he's worried that his mother-in-law might give me a hard time while he's away. But this time, He's overthinking it. His mother-in-law doesn't have the time to pay attention to him, let alone give me a hard time. First, Ruolin is also participating in the imperial examinations. Second, Duqianer and Hui Yan's wedding is approaching. As the eldest daughter-in-law, I naturally have to help with the preparations. She must have lost her mind to cause trouble for me at this time. After all, if I were to cause trouble, it would ruin her daughter's wedding. At the same time, I don't have time to fight with her because I'm even busier. I don't need to worry too much about Duqianer's wedding, but I absolutely cannot entrust Ruolin's medicine to anyone else. Moreover, I have an important matter to prepare for. My younger sister, Pei Shu, is also getting married. Her husband is the same family she was married to in her previous life. Their family background isn't particularly distinguished, but their overall circumstances are quite decent. It was carefully selected by our mother. In the previous life, my younger sister lived happily after marrying into that family, with a loving husband and harmonious in-laws. Therefore, when my mother asked for my opinion, I did not object. However, on the day of her wedding, my younger sister looked at the 2 jade headpieces and asked me in confusion, "Aren't these supposed to be one for each of us? Given by mother? Why is yours also being given to me?" I shook my head. "These are for the obedient children. Since you're disobedient, you can't have them." At the time, I was too young and thought that as long as I was with the person I loved, everything would be fine. So I didn't think about anything else. But I forgot that people's hearts can change easily, and they may say that it's because others' hearts are fickle. Therefore, I deserved not to have those ornaments, and I deserved to suffer the consequences. On the way back, I encountered Hui Yan blocking the path. We hadn't seen each other in a long time. He looked haggard, as if he had been drinking. Fortunately, there was no one around, and I saw him calmly. "What does this mean, brother-in-law?" He was about to marry Duqianer, but he didn't seem happy. He was drunk and cried and laughed, saying, "A1, I don't want you to call me brother-in-law. Why is this happening? Why is this happening? In this life, I didn't choose you. So why don't I still have a younger brother who is as handsome as you? Why didn't the princess choose me? Why did I have to settle for Duqianer? I thought I would marry a princess, and then you wouldn't be wronged by becoming a concubine. But why is everything different from what I thought?" He rambled on, but I understood. I also laughed. He dared to live a second life. And not only did he not marry me, he wanted me to be his concubine? Does he really think I, Pei Wan, am blind enough to fall for the same trick twice? Hui Yan, you're arrogant and self-righteous. But you've forgotten that there are always people better than you out there. Those with true talent will shine wherever they go, regardless of whether you're around or not. I'm truly grateful that heaven gave me another chance to start over. Otherwise, my child and I would have had to suffer a life of hardship with you." "Child? What child?" Hui Yan sobered up instantly and glared at me. I pulled down the curtain and mocked him. "You were drunk that day and rejected him. Just 2 months ago, I buried him in the courtyard, in that fresh mound of earth." Hui Yan froze in place, unable to move. Days passed like this. Hui Yanjun married Duqianer, but their marriage was not harmonious. Duqianer was domineering, while Hui Yanjun, who considered himself talented but unappreciated, wanted a gentle, understanding, and forgiving ideal wife. Duqianer was clearly not that person. As a result, their faces were already tense on the day they returned to their parents' home. To make matters worse, a year later, Duqianer refused to allow Hui Yan to take a concubine, while Hui Yan kept a mistress and even staged a rescue of a prostitute. One farce followed another. But none of that concerned me anymore. Because Ruolin had passed the imperial examination and become the top scholar. On the day the results were announced, we were overjoyed. My father-in-law looked deep in thought. And my mother-in-law's face was as grim as could be. There was no other reason. Ruolin hadn't passed the exam. When we found him, he was still gambling wildly at the gambling house. He was beaten by my father-in-law using the family's disciplinary methods. But it was useless. He couldn't quit. And he couldn't change. His mother-in-law had tried to intervene. But every time she did, Ruolin would shout, "Are you also favoring Ruolin? Now that I didn't pass the exam, you're siding with him. Father is favoring him now. And you're favoring him too?" His mother-in-law couldn't say a word. Ruolin, however, was unafraid. So what if he passed the exams? He's just a sickly weakling. He'll be dead in a few years. And then all the family fortune will be mine. Let's see who will take care of you in your old age. He had been spoiled rotten. He even met Hui Yan, who had come to the brothel to drown his sorrows after being upstaged by his younger brother. The two men, who both believed themselves to be talented but unappreciated and had been overshadowed by their brothers, hit it off immediately and felt a deep connection. They became close friends. At the time, no one could have imagined that these two men would cause such a huge scandal. Hui Yan and Ruolin were determined to make a name for themselves. They even opened a gambling house and embezzled public funds to cover the deficit. When it was discovered, his mother-in-law fainted on the spot. His father-in-law was severely reprimanded by the emperor. Over the years, he had already lost the emperor's favor. After Ruolin entered the officialdom, the old chancellor naturally favored him instead of him. Now that Ruolin had caused this mess, he felt like he had aged 10 years overnight. On the other hand, Ruolin had become the emperor's favorite. At that time, we had been married for 4 years. And he was still sickly. But he didn't die suddenly as everyone had hoped. Instead, his mother-in-law came to him to plead for Ruolin. Following her was Qianer. This was a well-planned move, as they not only came alone but also brought along clan elders to exert pressure together. But before they could speak, Ruolin took a stack of papers from my side. He spoke up, "You've all come at the right time." Ruolin was just about to consult the clan elders. "My mother and sister have caused no end of trouble over the years, bringing unrest to the household. But they have recently repented and are willing to go to the Buddhist temple to atone for their sins." "When did I ever say that?" Qianer shrieked. Ruolin, "I came here to ask you to save my husband." "Hui Yan." "Ruolin, what are you talking about?" My mother-in-law had a bad feeling and looked at me. "Is it you? Did you stir up trouble between my son and me?" She really knows people well. It was indeed me. Ruolin passed down these papers. "These are the bribes my mother has been taking in my father's name over the years. All of which she gave to my younger brother to squander. These are the troubles my younger sister caused with her husband. Though it was a family matter. Because her husband was a womanizer. She nearly killed a prostitute in secret. Now that my younger brother and sister-in-law have been exiled 3,000 miles away, these dirty deeds can no longer be hidden. Do you all think that our mother and younger sister going to the Buddhist temple to repent is sincere?" As soon as he finished speaking, those who had been helping the mother-in-law and Qianer immediately changed their tune. "Yes. Of course. If you ask me, they should go for the rest of their lives. As long as they have the heart. Send them off quickly. If we don't send them, are we just waiting for the truth to come out and bring shame upon the entire clan? Whether they want to go or not doesn't matter." As the mother-in-law and Qianer were dragged away, the former still refused to give up. "You ungrateful son. How dare you treat your own mother like this? Don't forget. I gave birth to you. Where is your father? How dare you act behind his back to deal with me? You have some nerve." Qianer, however, had lost her nerve and was begging for mercy. Eldest brother. I was wrong. I truly was wrong. I dare not anymore. Eldest sister-in-law. Eldest sister-in-law. Please speak for me. I truly was wrong. Ruolin remained unmoved. Father is currently being summoned by the emperor. He's likely in danger himself and can't protect our mother. To be honest, it's all because of the matter of our mother accepting bribes in our father's name. As for our mother's kindness in giving birth to me, he looked at his mother-in-law. I don't understand why our mother always favored my younger brother. When I was 10, it was my younger brother who pushed me into the lake. Yet mother told me not to say a word. All these years, my younger brother has done as he pleased. And even when I was gravely ill, you never once looked at me with kindness. Very well. I agree to your demand. I will not mention the incident where he pushed me. And this will settle the debt of your birth. He spoke with such resolve that there was no room for negotiation. The mother-in-law paused, her eyes wide. Ruolin, pay Wan. You'll both meet a terrible end. Her voice grew fainter until it faded away. Ruolin remained motionless. Until everyone had dispersed. He suddenly asked me in a daze. Wan, did I do something wrong? The next moment, he coughed up blood and collapsed into my arms. Ruolin. After all these years, I was panicked for the first time. He smiled weakly. Enough. All these years, I've been holding on for this moment. Finally, I've taken care of you. If that's the case, it's enough. My eyes welled up with tears. And I couldn't speak. Don't say that. Don't die. But how could he just say he wouldn't die and then not die? Ruolin smiled bitterly. Aw, Wan. Don't cry. I'm sorry. In the future, you'll suffer. My tears fell on his face. But I said, of course I'll cry. But what suffering do I have? Now I'm the matriarch of the Du family. All the Du family's vast estate is mine. I just want to cry for the unlucky baby in my belly who hasn't even been born yet and has already lost his father. Ruolin, who had been about to close his eyes, suddenly opened them wide. What did you say? He came to his senses and struggled in my arms to raise his hands. Let me down. I can still live. I stopped crying and smiled. He was lying. Ruolin lived until the age of 37. The doctor said it was a miracle. He died that year. And our son was 14. He had arranged for him to study under the greatest scholar of the time and secured a first-class imperial decree for me. Everything was arranged perfectly. Even if he died, his wife and children, along with the family estate, would not be coveted by his clan. Before he died, he leaned against me and said with a sense of relief, all these years, I never asked you that question. Now that I think about it, even if I asked you now, you might not tell me the truth just to make me happy. So, Wan, I will ask you another question. I asked him, what is it? He struggled to speak. If we were to be reborn, would you still be willing to be my wife? I had no more tears to shed. In the past, to encourage him to establish himself, I pretended to cry to motivate him to take the imperial exams. Later, to allow him to live longer and prevent our children from being orphaned, I forced out a few more tears. Now that everything is beyond salvation, I have no tears left to shed. Yet I feel more heartbroken than ever. It was the first time I realized that even in the deepest sorrow, one could still force a smile and reply, you fool. If not you, then who else would I marry? He smiled contentedly and slowly closed his eyes. He never opened them again. He was gone. This time, it was truly over. And I, the wife of the Minister of Works, the wife of the right Minister of the Court, the mother of the Marquis of the later court, a lady of noble birth. Hui Yan. I lived for 86 years. Throughout my life, I ruled the inner chambers and experienced many ups and downs. But I am still grateful to Ruo for not asking me if I loved him. Because even I didn't know the answer. If blame must be assigned, blame my father for his so-called devotion, which was nothing but an illusion. Blame also the fact that in my previous life, I met Hui Yan instead of him. One may make mistakes repeatedly, but one cannot fall into the same pit 3 times. Regarding Ruolin, I dare not gamble, nor do I wish to gamble. I do not know if I love him, but when he asked me before he died if I would marry him again in the next life, I did not hesitate. I am willing. Ruolin. If there is a next life, I am willing to marry you again. The end.